Live from the Zoom studios, the 17 and New Show, starring Ambassador Jeff Rivera, inviting you to join our special guest,
Dolores Huerta, community activist.
And here we go!
Good evening, everybody. It's with enthusiasm that I introduce our next guest. She is a celebrated Latina labor leader, an activist, a community organizer. She has worked for civil rights and social justice for over 50 years. In 1962, she and Cesar Chavez founded the United Farm Workers Union. Dolores is a two-time U.S. Presidential Award recipient. She received the Medal of Freedom Award from President Obama in 2012, the highest civilian award in the United States. And in 1998, from President Clinton, she received the Eleanor D. Roosevelt Human Rights Award. She's a founder and president of the Dolores Huerta Foundation. Without further ado, good evening, Dolores. How are you doing tonight?
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate you being here. I would like to start off with a question about your infrastructure or what your support system was. Who encouraged you? What was your passion behind the pursuit of helping working conditions for people? And what were some of the roadblocks and trials that you overcame in this journey?
Well, it was kind of interesting when you say the word infrastructure. It was more like knowing how to organize in the first place, and to kind of a man named Fred Ross Sr., who taught both Cesar and myself how to organize, that this is a way that we were able to build a base, because it didn't exist. The base did not exist. The infrastructure did not exist. So by meeting with workers a few at a time in their homes, and we did this for 3 solid before we started the union. We built the infrastructure. We built the base of workers that were willing to go out there and to go on strike, to go out on boycotts to the cities to tell people about their conditions, that we were able to change some of the conditions that the workers were living in. The low, miserable wages that they were being paid, the fact that they didn't have bathrooms in the fields, didn't have cold drinking water, didn't have the right to organize. But you might say that the workers are the ones that built the infrastructure. It's like building a building. You start from the bottom and you build a base, and then after that you can, add on the other parts of governance, say of the organization, with an executive board and committees, et cetera, et cetera. So when we talk about that base building and creating the infrastructure so that you can have an organization that can then take on the issues that you want to take on. So it's an infrastructure of people. And this is the way that you build it, by getting people together, talking to them, convincing them that they have power, making them understand that they are the ones that are responsible for their future. They're the ones, and they are the only ones that can change their conditions. And then that if they do not commit to do the work themselves, it's not going to happen. They cannot expect that somebody else is going to come here and come in and do it for them.
The next question I'd like to ask you is, I teach high school students, and a lot of them are in search of their mission. And that's what I wanted to ask you. When did you understand that this was your mission in life? And when was your all-in moment? Do you recall a moment when you were saying to yourself, this is what I have to do, this is where my passion is?
Well, I like many of us, people of color and women, that we grow up and we see a lot of discriminations. We are met with a lot of microaggressions and discriminations against ourselves. And we often feel very, very helpless because we don't know how to counter this. Well, and I grew up that way. I'm sure you did too, wondering how can we change this situation? So once you find out that, again, by organizing the base of people, by getting people committed that they're going to work on these issues, then that is the revelation. When you find out that the power is in your own person, that you can make this happen. I remember once after we had built this is an organization actually that Cesar and I belonged to before the United Farm Workers. It was called the Community Service Organization. And we had gone through a whole series of house meetings, meeting in people's homes. We brought everybody together. We formed an organization. The first thing that we did was go out there and register voters, go door to door to register voters. Then we set up an office to help people. So a man came in and he was paralyzed on his right side. He was paralyzed. He had had a stroke working in the fields. And he had to go down and apply for public assistance. So he came to us for us to help him. So I took him down to the welfare office. And the woman at the desk there, when I said that we wanted to apply for a public assistance because this man was crippled, he couldn't work, he had a family that he had to support. She refused to give him an application to apply. And so I remember going back to our office and I talked to Mr. Ross, the mentor I mentioned earlier, and I said, they won't let him apply. And he said to me, you go back down there to that office and you demand to see a supervisor. And I said, I can do that? He said, yeah, you go down there. Now, he didn't say, I'm going to call ahead. I'm going to give you a letter to give them. He said, you go down there. And so, so I had all kinds of butterflies in my stomach and I was all nervous and I went down there and I said, well, I demand to see a supervisor. And of course the supervisor came out and I explained the situation to them that they're not letting this man make an application for public assistance. And of course they had to, it was the law. But that woman, and how many people had she turned away? People that were entitled to and eligible for public assistance, for help, and she turned them away because nobody challenged her. And that was when I found out, okay, all of these people that work in all these public agencies, public offices, they work for us and we can demand of them that they do their job. So that you might say that was my aha moment when I found my voice.
So my father and mother both educated me when you went through the grape strike, the protest on it. And I remember just as a little kid, and I think that was one of my moments to buy into promoting rights for everybody. But they explained to me what the grape strike was about and how we supported it. My father grew up working in the fields, and he talked about people calling them fruit flies and things like that. So that was kind of my moment to be introduced into helping the community, was what you were doing. I know I didn't protest, but I learned about it, and that's what helped propel me. So I wanted to thank you for your movement. Is there anything that you could add to the grape strike from your viewpoint, from your perspective? What was it all about, and how do you think it finished?
Well, I mentioned earlier about how we organized the workers, and Cesar and I, when we learned this method of organizing by bringing people together, making them understand that they're the ones that have to change their situation. So we did that for 3 solid years, from 1962 to 1965, organizing the workers and their families all over the Central Valley of California. And we had not planned to go on strike for another couple of years to 1968, actually, 3 more years. But then the Filipino workers were not on strike, and so we had to support them. So, but a lot of people think, oh, well, Cesar walked into the field and all the workers went on strike. No, it didn't happen like that. For 3 solid years, we met with people in their homes and talked to them about how they could change their condition, but that they were the ones, as I said before, that they have to do it. And so when the strike broke out with the Filipino workers, and then we called all of our people together and said, okay, what are we going to do? Are we going to support the Filipinos or let the growers, vanquish them? And everybody said, no, we're going to support the Filipinos. Okay. So we all went out on strike. All of our people went out on strike also. But it took 3 years of organizing to make that happen. Of course, it was really impossible to win with the strike because no matter how many people we were pulled out of the fields and they supported us and kept stopped working, we were so close to the Mexican border that they could bring in strike breakers, almost overnight. And so we had to do something different. And there was an attorney in San Francisco. His name is Stu Weinberg. He's still around. And he said, he was one of our volunteer attorneys. And he said, have you ever thought of doing a boycott? And at that time, they had done the bus boycott in the South, the civil rights people, at Rosa Parks, and they had done that bus boycott. And so we thought, okay, well, we'll try that. And so one of the companies that we were striking was a liquor company called Shenley, and they had a vineyard. So we took that one on, and we said boycott Shenley. And of course, the boycott didn't last very long because they folded very, very fast. And a lot of the farm workers then went out to the cities, and then we did a big grape boycott. And that affected all of the grape growers. And so at the end of the day, there were 17 million Americans that stopped eating grapes. And that's how we won. It was literally through all of those people out there in New York and Chicago and Canada, in Europe, in the South and Texas, and all of these places that stopped eating grapes. And that's how we won.
Thank you very much in that effort. I really appreciate it. And so do so many people that benefited from your efforts. Next question I'd like to ask you, which one of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals is your favorite? Or if you have multiples, which ones would they be?
Well, I don't know what all of the goals are, but I think the major goal that all of us have to focus on today is saving our democracy, because we know that our democracy is challenged right now. Again, when we started the conversation, you talked about infrastructure. So the infrastructure that we have that we make to make the policies and the laws of the United States is our political system that we have. So we know that the way that we make laws, change laws, get rid of bad laws is that we have to get people to vote and to get them to elect people that will represent them and that will introduce and turn into laws of what they want. I mentioned earlier about the bathrooms. Farm workers didn't have bathrooms in the field. And when you think about how atrocious that is, people that are out there working every day, picking the food that's going to go into a box, that box is going to go to your supermarket. Yet the workers that were out there picking the fruits and the vegetables didn't have a bathroom, didn't have a place to wash their hands in even. So we had to have a law to make that happen. And first we got it into our contracts with the employers, which I negotiated, but then we got it into a state law and then into a national law. And so now farm workers all over the United States have a bathroom in the field, one for men and one for women, okay? And so this is what, again, going back to the infrastructure idea that you mentioned earlier, our infrastructure and our democracy is our state legislatures. It's our city councils, our board of supervisors, our educational people, our school boards. This is the infrastructure that we have. But we know that it's not going to work unless everybody participates, because if we don't participate, then we do not support good people, progressive people that are going to pass laws and policies that are going to help us, then we see just the opposite is happening. So that's why it's very, very important that our goal for all of us should be, how do we save our democracy? What do I have to do to make sure that our democracy lives in the United States of America? Because there are people, as we saw by what happened on January the 6th, there are some people that they want to take away our democracy. They want to have a dictator like they have now in Russia with Putin, and we had a previous president that wanted to be that. He didn't believe in elections. So this is what our challenge that we have today. And this has got to be the goal of all of us, which means that all of us have to be engaged in voting. And again, going out there, knocking on doors and talking to people about how important it is for them to vote and to vote for candidates that are going to give us immigration reform, that are going to support women's reproductive rights, that are going to support our LGBTQ community, our immigrant community, the workers that we have in our society. So, this is what we have. This has to be our ultimate goal for all. Let me just go back a moment to the question that you just asked me. And
Sure.
of course, one of the goals also that we have is to create leadership among people. And so when you have people that are out there, canvassing and talking to people that they don't know, talking to them about the importance of their voting, how this is going to be able to help us create laws that are going to eliminate some of the racism that we have in our society, the homophobia, the misogyny. When people are doing that, they're talking to people that they don't know to get them to vote. And what happens is that they become stronger as individuals, because that really, you might say, it strengthens their emotional fortitude, so that you're not afraid to talk to people. So this is really important. So when people become activists, that really makes them a lot stronger, and it kind of creates a leadership that we need.
Well, your life path sounds so impactful in the journey that you've taken, and it's full of wonderful moments. Looking back at what you have accomplished and looking forward to the missions you hope to complete, can you give our viewers and my students any words of wisdom, encouragement, and advice for their future as they start their journey into a profession?
Well, as I mentioned before, the one thing I would like to encourage everybody is to get out there and help get out the vote, register people to vote. This 2022 is a very important year because this is an election year. Who we elect to our different positions, like I mentioned before, your school board, your city council, your state legislature, the Congress, is going to determine what's going to be happening with all of these challenges that we have right now. We have seen, we need gun control. We see more mass shootings that are happening, more people getting killed. We see that they're trying to take books that tell the real history of the United States out of our libraries and out of our schools. They want, there's some people that want us people to remain ignorant and to continue the racism, because that's the way that they can keep us divided. And so we have to fight very, very hard to make sure that they don't win. I call it the haters, make sure the haters don't win. And those people that are anti-immigrant, anti-women, anti-LGBTQ, anti-workers and their unions, we have to make sure that they don't win. So we are in a very momentous time right now in our history. And all of the young people out there, you are the ones that are going to just have to save our country and save our society and get rid of some of the issues, some of the things that are wrong. You're the ones that are going to have to do it. And so, and by doing this, and don't be afraid, because we know all of the changes that have been done in society, major changes that have always been done by young people like yourselves. We talk about the labor unions, how people fought for the 8-hour day, fought for weekends, for unemployment insurance, all the things that we won. People that fought for the women's movement, they went to jail, they were beaten. We talked about the LGBTQ movement, the same thing. It's always been all the young people. Back in the 60s, they stopped the war in Vietnam. It was all the young people that went out there and marched and got other people to support them. We see now what's happening with global warming. It's the young people that are out there in the front. Again, so, you are the ones that are going to have to make it happen and, convince other people to come and join you. So it's a very beautiful, critical time. Sometimes a lot of young people will say to me, I wish I would have been there in the 60s. I tell them, you know what? The 60s are back with steroids, okay? Because of what's happening right now, because we're not talking about we're talking about not only saving our democracy, saving workers, saving our middle class, but also saving our planet with what's happening with global warming. So this is a beautiful, beautiful time to be alive, and that all of you out there can become the activists that we need right now to make all of this happen. And never forget that, don't be confused. It starts with voting.
Well, I know you're a very busy person and you have a lot to do today, and I very much appreciate you spending time with us. I wanted to tell you a little bit about our school district. Merced Union High School District was chosen one of the top 5 schools for green in our state, and we'll be flying to DC to July 26th to accept the award from the U.S. Department of Education. I know education is very important to you, and I also, after listening to you, already know that climate change is important to you. So I really appreciate everything that you're out there. I know you're only 92 years young and you're working as hard as you can for our climate, and I really appreciate that. Is there anything you can tell me about? I have a daughter. Do you mind talking about women empowerment at all? If there's any words of encouragement you can give young ladies, especially in STEM or anything to do within the climate change corridor?
Well, first, let me just say this. I think I'm glad that you mentioned education because education is going to be the savior. If we can get people educated, and bring all of these issues that we need into our curriculums, starting with elementary schools, because that's the way that we get of racism. Because little children are not racist; they're kind of born that way. Little children are not misogynist, So little boys can be taught that little girls are equal to them, and so we can get rid of this idea that women are inferior or that women have to be servants to men. This is really important for young women to understand that they have to say we are equal to men. Maybe not in physical strength, but when it comes to our intelligence, yes, we are equal to men. And I like to quote Coretta Scott King, who said, "We will never have peace in the world until women take power." And I have kind of changed that to say feminists take power, because I know there's a lot of men out there that they believe in women's reproductive rights, or they believe in women's leadership. And to all the young women out there, I just want to say, never be afraid to go for something that you like. If it's a job, it's a sport, or whatever it is that you want to put your heart, don't hold yourself back. And if there's something that you aspire to and you think, oh, maybe I'm not experienced enough, maybe I don't have enough of an education, do it just like the guys do, okay? Pretend you do, okay? Because you'll never know until you try what you can do. So don't hold yourself back because the day is over where women are supposed to be the servants for everybody except themselves, okay? Those days are gone. We know that we as women can be leaders and that we can be strong. Another thing I want to say, because a lot of things that are used to divide our community, especially the Latino community, communities of color, is the whole issue of women's reproductive rights. Number one, every woman, every girl, you are the only ones that can decide what to do with your body. Nobody else. Nobody else should ever have power over you or your body. You have to be the decider of your body. All right? That is a human right. And the same thing that happens with somebody, if they fall in love with or marry somebody of their own sex, that is their human right. And I want to share a quote with you from Benito Juárez, the president of Mexico, who said this: "El respeto al derecho ajeno es la paz." In English, that saying of the president Benito Juárez is this: respecting other people's rights is peace. Respecting other people's rights is peace. So that really means, again, no one should say to a woman what to do with her body, or to anybody who you should fall in love with or who you should marry. That is your human right. And please share that message, because sometimes people are confused about this. I've been talking a lot about voting. Now, people sometimes they vote on these issues of gay marriage or women's reproductive rights. Okay, that is every individual person's right to decide on those issues. These are very personal issues, and nobody, no political leader, no religious leader should tell anybody what to do with their life or their body. Okay.
Well, thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule today. We really appreciate it. I'm going to put the links underneath you on our way out, but do you mind explaining a little bit about your movie and also your nonprofit foundation, if you can give us a little bit of background on that, and I'll supply people with a link to grab more information.
Oh, yes. Please come to our website, DoloresHuerta.org, DoloresHuerta.org, and you can get a lot of information. Right now, we're focusing on voter registration and getting people out to vote. We did a lot of work on redistricting because during the census, we contacted like 84,000 people, and we were able to get some voting districts so we could have more people of color elected. And they adopted all of our redistricting maps, the Independent Commission here in California. For the Central Valley of California, they adopted our maps. We're doing COVID work. We have vaccinated over 8,000 people, and we have vaccine clinics every single weekend. We're doing a lot of work on education. We sued our local high school district because of the discrimination against Black and brown students, and we won that lawsuit. And from 25,000 expulsions in 1 year, we have it down to about 21. So this is the work that we're doing. We have a youth group also, and we do a lot of work on infrastructure. Also, people, if they decide that in their town that they need to have a neighborhood park, or they have to do street lights or street lights and gutters. And one of our committees actually went and got a brand new gymnasium built for the school. So we do a lot of work on this educational issue, organizing the parents and the students. We're active in about 17 different school districts, covering about 200 schools. So, but all of this work is being done by the parents, and the students. They're the ones that do the work. We just organize them, and then they make it happen.
Well, time has really flown by tonight, Dolores, but before you go, would you mind encouraging our viewers and students why they should get out and vote?
This is a democracy. The only way a democracy works is when people are involved. And the only way that you can participate in a democracy is by voting. This is the only thing. There's no other game in town. I liken it to a football game. You have one team that shows up and the other one doesn't. The team that shows up is going to win. And our team, we get our team there by voting for them. That's how we get our team there. Okay. That is the basis of our democracy. There is no other game in town. There's no other way. You can protest and you can march, and that's good because that brings out the issues. But unless you vote to make it a law, I mentioned before about the bathrooms and the fields we got for farm workers. Okay, we got it into a law in the state of California, but then we had to get it into law at the national level, so that farm workers in Texas and Louisiana and Georgia, so they could have bathrooms in the field and cold drinking water during the hot days, but it had to be put into a law. So tell your students that, and if I can address your students, I'm going to tell them that also. How do we get more money for our schools? We have to do it through a law. California, at one time, we were number 1 in the nation for money for education. Now we're number 36. At this point, we should have free college education for everybody. How do we get there? We have to get our representatives that we elect to our Congress to vote for that. That's the only game in town.
I used the grape boycott as part of my infrastructure to teach students how important it is to spend their money at corporations or with corporations that are environmentally responsible. It's not asking that much for corporations to look into what they're doing, checking into their company's sustainability practices, and then trying to upgrade them as much as possible. Climate change coming, and the more corporations that are buying into it and helping us out, the better chance we have of overcoming some of the drastic changes that will be happening to our planet. So that's one of the things that I try to teach students about using their economic voting power and helping out corporations that are truly trying to help out our environment.
We have to say to kids, look, there are different people in society. You have the corporate people, they have a lot of money. And then you have the working people. They don't have a lot of money, okay? But the working people, the only way they can make their voices heard is by voting. That's the only way. And the working people are the majority, but a lot of times they get discouraged or they don't think their voice is important, I hope that, I don't know, I think you mentioned you saw the documentary, but in the documentary, Dolores, who were the people that were against us? It was the President of the United States of America. It was the governor of California, Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, the president, Ronald Reagan. It was the Farm Bureau Federation, powerful agricultural organization. It was the Teamsters Union. We beat all of them. The people did, okay? And how did we win? And I'm glad that you mentioned what you said about voting with your money, because we got people not to buy grapes. That's how we beat them. All of the people united took this action. Okay, well, we can do the same thing with voting. If everybody votes, I don't care how much money they have, how much money a candidate has, the majority of the people, if they vote, that we win. So we have to just remember that. And just explaining to what do we have right now? What that we've been able to get by voting. During the pandemic, our governor, Newsom, was able to give people, even undocumented people, money in their pockets. The state legislature in California passed that undocumented people can have health care here in California. There's so many things that we have gotten through voting. So we have to explain that to people. How to end child labor. Many of the children that you're talking about would be out there working in the fields, but they had to get rid of child labor so that the kids could go to school. How do we get money for education? Again, through voting. So you have to explain the whole process to them so that they do not get discouraged.
One last comment, if I could get from you, is students see how slow sometimes government works. In fact, if you look at Brown versus Board of Education, 50 years after the Supreme Court ruled to desegregate, they found out schools weren't following the rules. So they had to put the federal economic stick behind it to start making schools desegregate. When you look at this, it's kind of disheartening to people who are trying to get things changed right away. What advice would you give students, and what kind of encouragement would you give them that their work, that what they're trying to change is having an effect, and to keep pushing forward on changing things for the better for our country?
Well, the one thing that, again, in today's world, we can do things a lot faster because we have the internet. So people can get more information very, very fast. Where before it took a long time for people to communicate and to organize, etc. In today's world, because they do have the internet, people can organize a lot faster, so we can get things done a lot quicker, say, than when I went to school. So we have to say that to kids also, so that they understand. And I would say all of your students out there, have them write a letter to the state legislature. Take them down to their office and have them meet with them. We have some really good bills on the environment. Our organization, we're partnering with a group called the Romero Institute out of Santa Cruz. And we have a bill right now in the state legislature so that they can build electric chargers all over the state of California so everybody can buy an electric car. That would stop the carbon emissions by 30%. And when you go buy a car, that you would get the money, the rebate right then when you buy the car. You don't have to wait 6 months to get that rebate. Now that's a bill that we have in Sacramento right now. It's SB 1230, and our author is Monique Lemon from Santa Barbara. So in your area there, I would have them go down and meet with Jim Costa and ask him, what are you doing about global warming, about climate change? Are you seeing the transition out of oil into green energy? Or meet with your local state legislator in your area, and have the students go over there and ask them questions so that they can see how that legislator works for them and has to do, because even if you're a youngster, you pay taxes. Your taxes are the ones that are paying the salary of that legislator. They can find out where the power is, and they understand that the power is with them.
Well, Dolores, thank you very much for spending so much time with us today on the 17 and Me Show. I appreciate you taking the time out for our viewers and students to try to educate them on the different projects that you're working on. And also, I'd like to thank you for all the work that you put in for our farm laborers. We really appreciate your efforts and how much it has paid off for our people. Thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you for watching this episode of the 17 and Me Show. If you're a student or teacher and would like to learn more about the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, please go to teachsdgs.org. Looking forward to seeing you on our next episode of 17 Minutes.